Sean Martin, and you're listening to HodgeCast.
Sean Martin, a figurehead in the sport of mixed martial arts throughout the Northwest and Merseyside. Sean has been both a fighter and a coach, and has mentored some of the greatest fighters to come out of Merseyside through his gym, HAMMA, based in St Helens. Sean could be considered by many your stereotypical Hardman, but in this episode we go raw and uncut to show that being a big, strong cage fighter doesn't always make you a tough guy, as Sean opens up about the highs and lows within the career of mixed martial arts, both in and outside of the octagon.
Without derogatising the area, it was very middle class. It was Thatchers Liverpool, it's socialism and solidarity and looking after humanity rather than looking after yourself. I had as a kid was obesity, if I'm being fair. Yeah. That was the first struggle in my life. Always quite vocal, I'm quite an alpha. Well, my biggest challenge ever in life, it's always been my biggest challenge, it's still my biggest challenge today. It's a challenge that never goes away. When you've got to be hard, I was half pissed. I was down there when it's told I was going to the corporate and I was going to do myself in. It's like, I just fucking hate myself. You don't deserve me. And she said, pull over now. She said, turn the car and come back. She said, I love you. And she said, don't be fucking stupid. That's what I was thinking about. And that told me come and see me that day, and then my mate took me up the car and I said to my mate, I just looked up and we was down the road, it was like the sun coming through the sky. And I just looked up and I said to him, I'm going to stop drinking. He said, you need help? I said, no, I won't, I'll do it myself.
Give one piece of advice to someone who's maybe has got an addiction, maybe has suffered with the mental health. What would be the first step you could advise them?
Hello listeners, my name is Daniel Hodges. I'm a philanthropist, a fundraiser, a world record holder, and now a podcast host. However, my most noteworthy title is, like you listening to this, I too am just a human being with a few stories to tell. I've been at rock bottom, the lowest of the low, even attempting suicide, to then change my life around and be on top of the world. I've fundraised thousands of pounds over the years for various different charities, from running marathons, to jumping out of planes, to climbing mountains, to even getting my face punched in a boxing ring. I think it would be fair to say I've had my fair share of challenges in this funny old game called life. This podcast is my way of giving back, using the challenges I've overcome as a catalyst so that others can open up how they've overcame theirs. Each guest we have on the show will talk about a time in their life where they've had to overcome adversity, and hopefully you, the listener, can take inspiration from their life experiences. Thank you. You are now listening to HodgeCast. What is your challenge?
Sean Martin is probably best known within the mixed martial arts community for his efforts in and outside of the octagon. Once being a formidable fighter to now using the skills and experiences he's picked up over the years to be arguably a more formidable coach. Sean owns his own gym and brand, HAMMA, where we're based today, based out of St Helens, growing some of the best fighters the Northwest has seen. Sean is someone who's walked the walk many a time, but today we will also be talking the talk, as Sean has had his first share of near misses, heartache and turmoil, both inside and outside of the ring. Welcome to the show, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
No worries. So the guests we've had on the show have all typically been from my hometown, St Helens. Rob Beech, of course, you've coached. And as you probably heard, Sean's a Scouser. Yeah. So whereabouts in Liverpool did you grow up, Sean? Do you want to give us a little bit of the dynamics?
Yeah, so I'm from the Knowsley area. I grew up in Huyton, but we moved to Wiston when I was 14. So Huyton really. Spent a lot of time. My family are all from Canny Farm, so grew up really with them before we moved to Wiston, which was like our posh life. But my dad got a better job and he wanted better things for us than living on, no disrespect, but than living, in an area where he grew up. My dad done the same. My dad was a city boy from Scotland Road, proper the city. And he moved to Huyton when he was 14 for a better life. Yeah. So it was just a progression, I think, with my dad. I think he got a good job in a BI and we ended up living in Wiston. So yeah, Knowsley really. So, but as I said, I started working on the door in St Helens in the 90s. So I consider St Helens my home. Even I live in Rainhill, which is sort of in the middle, But it's still part of St Helens. I've been doing martial arts a long time, so the progression obviously is when you can look after yourself and you're a fair big lad. If you want to make an extra few quid, you get on the door, and it was just a progression. I was never like, I mean, I used to work with lads who wanted to be doorman, you know what I mean? That wasn't me. I was there for the extra dough over the weekend, and I didn't want to do anything either, you know what I mean? I wasn't there for fighting. I used to get paid for fighting, so like not 50 quid either, you know what I mean? So being on the door over the weekend, but when I come up here, I was welcomed with open arms. And listen, I would say 20% of people who live in St Helens now are Scousers. You know, I remember when I very first come up here, I started going out with my wife, you know, in 1990, the end of 1991, when I was just before I was 17 and she was 16. And her family are all St Helens people, so I've spent most 2/3 of my life probably in this town, on and off. And it's funny, you know, because people from Western and Eighton and Prescott, they all think they're dead Scouts, but St Helens is closer to them than Liverpool is. They don't like hearing that, but it's true, guys. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny because like back when I was sort of growing up, it was you was considered a placky Scouser.
Yeah.
But you're right in what you're saying. I do think there's
the fighters get that. The fighters get that. So the St Helens lads get that. So we'll go away. I remember like Beech was fighting in. Rob Beech was fighting for a world kickboxing title up in Motherwell in Scotland. That was the Lions then, and they'd advertised it as England versus Scotland in Scotland. You know, it was like fighting William Wallace. So and my family, my background, I'm not very English. Obviously being a Scouser, but you know, all my mum's family are Irish. My dad's grandparents were Irish. So like if you go back 3 generations, I'm Irish. My grandma was actually from Aberystwyth, so I've got a bit of Welsh in me, but English. So when the fella's saying to us, you're fighting out of England, so they put these lads out first, and like when we come out, I said Sabres from the Principality of Merseyside, and they were asking Rob, what are you? And Rob was saying, from St Helens, guys, I'm a placky Scouser. They went, wait, you say, are you a Scouser? Because you don't sound like him. Yeah. I was like, sort of, but no. I said, they call him a placky Scouser. He went, yeah, placky Scouser. That's what he was.
It's amazing how you got Rob to go along with that, to be honest.
Yeah, to be honest with you, he's a proud St Helens lad. But I think Rob didn't want to get stabbed or shot like me.
Well, he spoke about that.
Doesn't matter how big and hard you are.
He spoke about that fight actually on the when he come on the show, and he showed, and he knows, right, because I've told him. He showed me something different in him that night. He had to show me being a man, what being a man is. I've been there before, and I know Rob had, but it was the first time I'd seen it. You know what I mean? He come back to me after 8 rounds. It was a 12-round fight. You know, we're used to 3-round MMA fights, and I think Beechy in his boxing career only done 8 rounds or 6. And he come back at me. I think it was the 7th or the 8th round, and he went, "Gaffer, how many rounds are left?" And I went, about 5 or 6, you know. He went, "Oh, fucking hell." But you know what? He won the fight. They give a draw because I think they didn't want the crowd to kill us. No. Well, fair play to him. Yeah. So just to sort of kind of strip it back a little bit there, was you mentioned that you grew up in Hythe, and then obviously St Helens has been a big part of your life. But from what you remember, what was it like growing up? Was it a bit of a rough area, would you say you lived in?
Yeah, I mean, where I grew up, I mean, without being... Without derogatising the area, you know, it was very working class. It was Thatchers Liverpool. It was very much Thatchers Liverpool. I grew up in, I always hear that song, She Sells Sanctuary. And it just reminds me of being a kid. Every time, Frankie Goes to Hollywood comes on, I just smell my childhood. It's like the smell of my childhood comes back when I hear some 80s music. And I grew up, and it was like me, my cousins, I mean, over weekends, me ma and dad. I mean, my mum and dad always worked, you know. My dad had a lot of problems with obviously striking. My dad was working in the BICC, and he was working part-time somewhere else as well. And the other industry he was working in, Thatcher, was having a real big go at, you know, the docking industry, you know. And he was working in the BICC in Prescott, which was being attacked and trying to shut down. They were trying to move the copper to China then. Right. In 1980, I remember them being on strike, and my dad was on strike for 11 weeks. And basically, my mum would say to us, we'd get home, and she'd say, me and my brother who works here, funny enough, downstairs, my other brother come along later. He was still a baby, but me and my brother would be about 10, 11, my baby brother would be a baby. And I remember going listen, I say this to Beechy because Beechy's brought up in a different sort of, you know, only child. His mum and dad had a very good job. So I say this to Beechy and he goes, oh, you sound like you come from the hood. And I'm like, I do.
Yeah.
You know, I do. I don't like saying it, but I do. And it's like, I remember going to bed and I'm not saying this because I've just lost my dad. Right, and he was the best fucking father anyone could have. Honestly, he was. He was just such a man. I wouldn't be who I am without my dad. My dad took me to every martial arts class going because I was a fat kid and I got bullied. And I lived on, you know, we lived in a fucking rough place and you can't get, listen, if you're fat and you stick out, the kids bully you anywhere. But when
Still happens today,
when you live on a working class corporate estate, you know what I mean? You get bullied even more, you know what I mean? And I was very much didn't fight my own corner. Used to come home and cry. So, you know, what I'm saying to you is my dad was on strike for his principles and we were starving because my dad believed in socialism and solidarity and looking after humanity rather than looking after yourself. Yeah. So my dad was on strike for a reason. At the time I was starving as a kid and I reckon my ma, when I say hunger pains, I don't mean like people in Africa that have, and I'm don't want to derogatize, but me and my brother regularly go to bed starving because my ma would say to us we could only got beans on toast again because my dad had not been paid for 9 weeks. You know what I mean? We couldn't pay the council bill for the house. So if my dad hadn't been paid, it's not me. I'm not going to moan to my ma. I had to man up as a kid because I wouldn't go to my ma. I'm starving. And like I remember like going to school and my first year at senior school, my dad was on and off. It was in '86. And the first year, that was when my dad was on strike a lot, 86 to 87. And the first year of my senior school, I remember I used to get £1 dinner money, right? And we could apply for a free dinner ticket when my dad was on strike, but my dad was, his dignity wouldn't let him do that. He didn't want the state to pay for his kids' dinner. And my dad used to give me £1 coin every morning for me dinner. And like, you could get a good dinner in our school for 65p. That's how old I am, by the way. You could get a good dinner for 65p. You know, you could get like fish chips and mushy peas for 65p.
Just to add on to that though, I mean, not only is it a testament to what it was like in the north, back you say Thatchers Britain kind of thing, but a testament to your dad now, passionate people like your dad were against the government. And I know the government still, you know, argue they're still just as bad as they was, but certainly in that era.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, you know, the left and the right now. I mean, me and Rob's quite.
He's very political.
Rob's quite rightist and I'm quite leftist, but we're not going to go into politics. And I honestly believe that's just because of the way we were brought up. I do, honestly. But Clement Attlee said the difference between the left and the right is one word: empathy. Yeah. You know, and it's true.
No, 100%.
You know, a right-wing guy will step over someone in the street and go get a job. A left-wing guy will give him money and say, you're all right, mate. Yeah. That's the difference. That's not just, I'm not about politics, it's just about life. Now, listen, Rob is centre-right and I'm centre-left, so we both got both qualities and we can meet a common ground a lot, me and Rob. You know, we won't agree on a lot of things, but then we'll sort of digest the middle bit. Yeah. And my dad would always listen to someone, and growing up where we lived, there's a lot of chaos when you live, like, you know, there's kids smoking at 9 and, you know, I remember kids just being full of ice cream and fucking smoking ciggies on some power stations in the marsh shouting, get down, you little bastard, you know. Honestly, it was like growing up in Rita Sue and Bob too, you know. I mean, people used to
film that,
but we used to, like, I go to the local pub with my half fella and the kids would come in and build spliffs on the bar at the pub. Yeah. You know, the girl would be serving them while he was crumbling to fucking weed and you know, and he'd go, you can't smoke that in there here though, lads. And everyone would be smoking bifters, they'd have to smoke that outside. But they'd let them build a fucking spliff in the bar. I mean, our fella hated anti-drugs, my dad. My dad would be like, oh, get these, they're on the dope. But my half fella said, you know, when he passed away in January, and he was only ill for a short time, and the nurse come in and was fluffing his pillows, and it was the day before the nurse's strike, and he said to the nurse, don't worry about me tomorrow, girl, you make sure you're on strike. Hey?
Well, there we go. Testament to what a character he was.
Yeah.
So just to sort of, I appreciate you sharing that, and obviously condolences about
no, you know, it's life, isn't it, you know.
So you mentioned that your dad took you to a few sort of was it mixed martial arts back then? But no, an education piece from you. Because that only really come into play, if I'm correct in saying, off the back of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
Because the early shows at that, it was different,
yeah,
different experts
well,
in
the
field, wasn't it?
the progression, I mean, the thing is with me, right, my old fella wanted me to do boxing. My old fella's sport was boxing. In Liverpool, right, and this is a fact, up until 25 years ago, till MMA come into Liverpool, because Liverpool is the capital of MMA, right? It's the #1 city in Europe, by the way, guys. More people have fought out of Liverpool than any city in Europe. There's 1.5 million people in Merseyside. There's 11 million people in London, right? More people have won ABA titles from Liverpool than any other city outside of London, right? So it is a fighting city. Yeah. Like, people, my dad always said, Scousers who aren't hard, I think they are. Right? Do you know what I mean? It's an attitude we've got. It's key. It's called being Scouse. Right. But anyway, long story short, it's a mix of Irish and English culture, I think. I think the English make you tough and rootless, and the Irish make you nuts. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing I will say though is certainly from all, I mean, I've worked in sales recruitment, and I'll go on record and saying this on the camera, the Scousers are the hardest working people I've ever worked with. Yeah. So I do think that's a true sort of statement.
Yeah, honestly, mate, we were brought up, in Liverpool, you're brought up, like, everyone's brought up left wing. It's a left wing society. It's like, if you're not left wing, you're not part of us. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're just not a Scouser. If you've sorry, fuck off. You know what I mean? People still don't buy the sun 35 years later, you know what I mean?
No, I think that's testament to the roots, isn't it? Yeah. So go on, so your dad took you into...
So the problem I had as a kid was obesity, if I'm being fair. Yeah. That was the first struggle in my life, was me weight, right?
When you say, just so obviously the viewers can get an idea, when you say you was you obese, or was you just a bit of a fat kid?
I was just a bit of a chubby kid. I was just a load of puppy fat. But because I'm a big framed kid as well, and even when I later in life, in my early teens, when I started kickboxing properly, and it's really, I mean, I went from the chubby fat kid to the big, strong, muscular kid in about a year in high school, and it shit the pants up off everyone. Right? The people who would skip me when I was a kid. And they were in the same fucking school as me. They'd follow me up to school. Right? And it changed. Definitely. Because my dad said to me, right, I'm going to take you to boxing. So he took me up to ISI gym in Prescott. And he knew that when you wanted the trainers there, Dave Mulcahy, whose son Alan is a good friend of mine, he won maybe 8 titles. And there was a famous family up there, the Beedmans. There was a show at the time called Henry Cooper's Golden Belt. It was all junior fighters from all over Britain. And as you can imagine, in the 80s, the Scousers dominated it. You know what I mean? It was like every ABA champion was a Scouser, bar a couple from London. You know what I mean? A couple of black kids from London, really. So I watched this family were at this gym called the Beedmans, and there was 4 brothers. They were like they were 4 brothers, and I think bar the youngest one, they all won ABA titles. And Henry Cooper's Golden Belt was like this new show. It was live on Channel 4. Channel 4 was a new media, a new channel, and they put this, and I remember watching these kids boxing, and they were kids. Like, I'd only ever seen, like, Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard, and I grew up with them, Thomas Dietman Earns and Roberto Duran, they were what I grew up with, and, like, I grew up, like, watching football, and I was blessed as well, being in it. I know, like, I want to say as a proper Scouser, I'm a blue, and Everton were fantastic as well. I mean, from me being 7 till I was 13, Everton were fantastic. They won everything, 2 league titles, 2 FA Cups, European Cup Winners' Cup. And so, and to see these kids boxing, that was sort of like, wow, kids are on the telly boxing. And they were local kids. They were kids that I see walk past me in the street. Like, and I'm like, these 3 brothers who like, Graham's still a good mate now. And so my dad took me to this boxing gym, and it was a bit, if you never watched the very first Rocky films. Yeah.
Two of the greatest films in well, for me anyway.
I mean, considering a 19-year-old Sylvester Stallone wrote that film, people forget that. It's like everyone gets Matt Damon, but when he was 17, he wrote Good Will Hunting. He was 17, right? What a film! Both of them are brilliant films. But Rocky, I used to, obviously, that was the first Rocky film was 75, the year I was born. You know what I mean? So the second Rocky film comes out 78. I'm 3. My dad puts it on VHS when we get the VHS. And so when I went, I always thought, because obviously it's in Philadelphia, which is a very much left-wing working class American city, right? Very similar to Liverpool.
Yeah.
But I think Boston's more like Liverpool in America. I think Boston is their Liverpool. It's the only accent that's a little bit Irish, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but going away from that, you know, I went into this place and it smelled like sweat. And the coaches were in the corner smoking a biff there. You know, two of the old coaches, John and Dave, they're in the corner smoking biffers, putting them in the bucket full of sand that you're supposed to throw on the fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and it was like, personally, overwhelming. Boxing was very manly, and I wasn't a man, I was a little boy. And I was an immature 11-year-old. I was an 11-year-old to be mollycoddled by my ma, telling me, I love you, lad, because she was lovely, you know.
Yeah.
I love you, mum, and, you know, and I wasn't mentally mature at all. 11, like the kids in our school were proper mature, you know, they were going out on crosses, and you see them on the crosses on the field, and they'd be smoking biffers, and they'd be fucking whatever doing, getting birds, you know, and up the alleyway and whatever, you know. You know what I mean? At 12, and I was
none of that.
miles away from that.
Yeah.
You know, so my dad took me to this, and I was about 11, I think. So at 11, you'd ask me, because I'm a big frame, you know, I'm lean at the moment, and I'm just under 17 stone, and that's me staying lean. So I've always been a bigger kid than the average. I've got bigger, my dad said I got big bones. He used to say I've got big bones. So I think it's a good way to tell me I wasn't fat. And I was overweight. I mean, I was about 11 stone when I was 11, which is, if you realise body to weight ratio, there's not many 11-year-olds. And I was chubby, and I did have a big belly on me. And my face was chubby, and I had a big mop of blonde hair. And I looked soft, loads of freckles. I just looked like the softest kid in the class. I was. And my cousin lived across the road from me, Tommy, and he sort of persecuted me, not in a bad way, just in a family way. And we'd have fights, and he'd always beat me up. He used to do traditional jiu-jitsu, the Japanese jiu-jitsu, and he knew locks, and he was like my big brother growing up. And he lives right across the road from me. He's only a year older than me. And one morning, my dad seen me outside arguing with my cousin, right? And obviously it's his brother's lad. Yeah. So, you know, there's a bit of, you know, families. Anyway, he seen my cousin Tommy push me, and me just like start filling up and crying, and walked in the house. And he said to me, right, no more of that shit, lad. He said, I'm not having you. He said, the size of you. He said, because our Tommy was like a rake. He's always been like a rake, right, like skinny. And he said, the size of you thump him once, he'll never do that to you again. So, he took me to boxing, and honest to God, if I'm being really honest, it was too manly for me. It was just like, and at the end of the boxing class, a fella called Terry McAllinney come in, and they all had long pants on. And I'm like, what the fucking hell is this in my head? And the side kick in the back, bang, and I'm thinking chamber side kicks. And it looks, I thought, as a kid in my head, I thought, whoa, if that hit me, I'd be dead. But if one of them punches hit me, I'd survive. You know, in your head as a kid. It's not a bit of a fallacy, like. But in your head, you think that. And kicks are harder than punches, 100%. Rob Beech will tell you that. Yeah. Kicks are harder than punches. But, especially like a side kick to the belly, because it's just your whole thrust and hip, body, bang. And they could do it so well then, like, because it was that old, what we call North American style kickboxing, you know, long pants, no kicking to the legs, all spinning hook kicks, and, you know, front kicks to the face. It's very, very pleasing on the eye. Aesthetically, it looks amazing, you know. So I started that freestyle kickboxing, and I just couldn't believe how good I was at it. I couldn't believe, like, I only went to Terry's class about 4 times, and then a fella called Old Eddie opened his Hungar studio by ours, like a walk from the house. So I started going up to Old Eddie's, and it was very traditional. It was different to the kickboxing I'd done in them, like, 5 sessions, but the difference is between Eddie's place and they were just renting bags at the end of, when the boxers had went, so it was at 8 o'clock and I was a young lad. So I'd had to get there because the boxers would use it from 6 till 8 and then the kickboxers would use it from 8 till half 9. And I had to get the bus there, and the time I was getting home, my dad was like, listen, you're not getting the bus up to Prescott from Eighton when you're 10, and then coming back at 10:30 at night. I'm not letting you do that. Even though I know you want to do it, you're not doing it. And it was very slow paced, traditional martial arts, and I learned it and I stayed with it for about a year. And then Eddie was a bit of a plonky, right? You know, Eddie was into the traditional martial arts, but not actually what we are now as athletes, you know. Living a clean life with a clean, you know, he believed in the philosophy of Eastern culture, but drink a bottle of whiskey every night, you know. But listen, I've been there myself, I've done that myself, so I'm not blaming him, and I can understand it. So he let one of his students take over, Ian Wilson, and that's when my life changed. When he let Ian Wilson take over that class. And that's...
Is that due to the way he was training you, or was that is that where you found sort of your potential?
Yeah, I mean, Ian come in, and Ian was the very first... Ian come in about... when I was about 14. So I'd done martial arts, started when I was about 11 and a half, 12. And Ian come in when I was about 14, and Ian was the first person to say to me, when he took over the class, he went, Eddie's gone, he said, right, sit down. And he sat us all down. And we've been doing katas for a year. And hungar stuff, right? And he sat us down here and he went, right, Eddie's gone, I love Eddie, he's taught me a lot, but we are going to turn this gym into a gym that competes. We're going to start fighting. And I was like, oh, what's that? Right? And he said, so the training is going to change, and the training changed to kickboxing. So what Terry McElhinney was doing, side kicks, thrusts, spinning back kicks, Superman punches. No leg kicks, but because I've done Kung Fu do throw leg kicks. Traditional kickboxing don't, so I had the leg kick anyway. So it's one thing that's the journey of martial arts. You've got to take something from something. And one thing Eddie did teach me is kicking to the leg is much more important than kicking to the head. You know. And Ian just took me from 14 till I was 19, I was with Ian. And he just took me to this, like, I found myself. I went from 11 stone, 5'2", chubby kid with blonde hair and freckles. And 2 years later, I was a 6 foot, 6-pack, ripped, chiseled jaw, shaven at 14, right? Like, I hit puberty early because of the martial arts. All my mates were only at puberty when I was nearly done with it. I was fucking, I was a man. But kickboxing, and I started fighting was 13 and a half. So it turned me into a man, and Ian, without Ian, that would never have happened. And he knows that because I'm still his friend on Facebook, and I'll share this, and he'll watch every bit of this Ian. Because he follows my career and he's so proud. Well, I could get upset. He's so proud of me.
Well, that's testament to him as a coach.
Yeah.
And just touching on that, because obviously we could talk about your illustrious career, but we want to kind of know the transition from fighting to then deciding I want to be like Ian, I want to be a coach now. Well, what age were you when that happened?
First of all, I want to mention when I left Ian, I went to up here, St Helens at Haydock. I started in Nedley because Albie's class was in Nedley, and he's a St Helens legend. Another Scouser who's adopted St Helens as his home, Albie Bimpson. He's a very famous kickboxing coach. He was an ABA champion as a junior, got a bad eye, he couldn't pass them, he wanted to go turn over, so he couldn't fight. He ended up turning professional kickboxing because he could pass the medical, and he won everything. And then he'd be a coach, and I went to Albie. Albie would have been in his late 30s. So he was a little bit more mature than Ian. And I said to Ian, I want to fight K1, I want to fight leg kicks, I want to fight in the ring, I don't want to fight on the mat for points, I want to go. I want to be able to, the referee not to go, stop, you've got a point. And now I want to be able to just get punched and punch him back and get punched, because I liked it. In sparring, I liked to get hit, I didn't mind it at all getting hit. So he went, you're going to go to Albie Bimpson, Albie's done mad. That's how good a coach Ian is. Do you understand? That's how good a coach Ian is. And I went to Albie, and then I see what I could be. So, fighting, I was never, again, I've had, over the years, one-shot fights. You can have 8 in a day. So, you know, when I was a kid, I probably had 200 of them. I had, in a ring, I had 12 just kickboxing above the waist kicks. Then I had 20 amateur K1 bouts. Then I had 28 pro K1 bouts. And then later on, slowly, I had 12 MMA bouts. I had to have amateur MMA bouts and 7 professional MMA bouts. But it was over my MMA was very sporadic because I was always learning, right? Because MMA's got so much in it. Started grappling when I was 25, which is very late, you know. So I started like just doing catch wrestling, going up to ASW in Wigan. And then all of a sudden, MMA comes about. And I've done a bit of everything. I've done a bit of judo. My dad took me to judo twice a week when I was a kid. I forgot to mention that. So, because my dad was always worried. And I remember, going back to the original story, we were outside, we had a skip outside our house. I always remember there was a skip outside our house because my dad was building a garage. And me and my cousin are arguing. This is about 2 years into kickboxing, right? And my cousin, like, headbutted me. And I went back and I went bang, bang, right hand, left up, put him on his ass. And my dad was watching through the front window. And that's what going to martial arts. And me and my cousin then, I was always still scared of our Tommy, right? But he was always scared that I was going to, now, if he said anything, I was going to fucking hit him back. And that's all my dad wanted. And that's what coaching is. So when I come to the end of it, was like, when I knew my body wasn't right. But I did come back and have fights later on after I'd started coaching. And that was only because I thought I was better. Because I'd learned more from coaching. I was working in the NHS. My full-time job was a nurse, and then my full-time job was a nurse, and then I knew like I was always going to be a decent coach because I was always like quite vocal. I'm quite an alpha, you know. So I'm always I can tell people what I fucking think. You know what I mean? And that's basically all you need. Knowledge is everything. I always knew I was going to be a coach, but full-time as a job, I never ever imagined it. If it wasn't for my wife saying, have a go, right? I wouldn't be where I am. Because I was working in the NHS and my dad was a big pessimist, and he'd say, you got a job for life there, lad. What are you doing teaching the martial arts, you know? Because I was swapping shifts and I'd been bollocked in work a couple of times because I was doing martial arts in the sports hall, teaching it. But honest to God, I was making more dough doing martial arts, 3 classes a week for an hour and a half, 5.5 hours a week. I was getting 500 quid. And I was working all week in the NHS for 3.5. You know what I mean? And so my bird was saying, well, open a little place. And we tried Knowsley, we tried Heighton first, where we started. And it was only when I went to St Helens Chamber I got any help, and he was so good. And I thought that town's a town of 200,000 people. It's one of the biggest populated towns in England, St Helens. And I'm worrying about I can't get a place in Knowsley. You know, there's only 40,000 people in Knowsley. You know what I mean? St Helens eclipses it 5 times. So I thought to myself, as a business perspective, they're all hard bastards. They all play rugby. You know what I mean? There's one thing Scousers know about. Like, listen, every Scouser will tell you, and I'm one about Scousers who come and drink in St Helens, so the Prescott lads, the Western lads, right? The Heighton lads, the ones who come and drink in St Helens. They'll all say the same thing. Whoa, don't take the money back to me soft. No one ever says it because you're all big hard bastards, and you are, right? It is a very tough time because rugby league instills toughness, man. Such a tough sport. So when I come up here, it was like peas in a pod. It was like St Helens is where I should be. I've worked up here on the door. I know the big lads. I know the St Helens elite, the mafia. You know, all my mates now. But like it's, and you know, they all respected me anyway from what I did on the door. Not that I was an hard case on the door, but I always backed my shit up. You know what I mean? You work with doormen who are always in the toilet when you have a fight. You know what I mean? Work with loads of them. Fucking best muscles on the planet. Kicks off and we're hardy. You know what I mean?
Surely need a piss.
I mean, like, I'm wearing loads of them. Taking the 50 quid like me, though, they're robbing bastards.
So with regards, so you found St Helens is where you're going to set up. You found that sort of gap in the market. What year was it always HAMMA? Has that always been your brand?
Well, originally, right, I was in Heighton in the Georgie Sports Hall, and look, my mate Paul Fairlong, who runs the boxing club next door, Heighton Boxing's a very good boxing club. he said to me, he knew I was, like, he said, the lads want to fight, some of the lads want to learn how to fight, you know, Sean, or they're doing the boxing, he said, you know, like, you're good all-rounder. And I'd been doing a Valley Judo class with a lad called Alan Shepherd, and he really taught me how to wrestle really well. Alan was a big part of my journey. I haven't mentioned Alan. He was the big transition. He was the first time I'd ever saw anyone mix it up.
Yeah.
So he was a decent striker. He wasn't much of a kickboxer, Alan, and he'll openly admit that. But he was a decent boxer. He had great hands, and his wrestling was good. Submission grappler, but he had good top control. And he taught me the basics, and he opened a little class. And after about a year, I was his best student by far. I was fighting MMA at the time, like 2003. I was fighting MMA. And Lee Chadwick was going to see it. He went to Calbon, which was a big super gym that had just started. And I was like, I seen this gym in Next Generation and Calbon's opened up together at sort of the same time. About 2000, Calbon's refit was about 2003. And they moved from like a little shitty gym to unbelievable plush facility, cage, everything, bags, unbelievable. But good money in it. Next Generation had a big gym, wasn't kitted out like Calbon, but they had a cage and it was good facility. And I'm in a sports hall and we're all fighting, and Alan Shepherd says to me, I've got a full-time job, mate, it's fucking £800 a week, I've got kids, I can't, can you take this class over? And at the time, Alan had, and listen, Alan will openly admit this, you know, at the time, Alan had about 15 students regular, and I was thinking, well, he's done me a favour, he's doing me a really good favour. Yeah. So I took the class, and in fairness, when I started taking the class, the lads that liked Alan, about 5 of them dropped off, right? But then the lads who stayed realised, you know, Sean showed us how to kick and spin and kick, and I had that in my game, the kicks from the kickboxing. So it started getting dead popular. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting 50 on my mat. I remember Alan come back after a year. It was my busiest class I'd ever had. Took a photo at the end of it. It's on my Facebook somewhere. And there was 60-odd kids in. 60-odd people. And he walked in the class. He must have thought, I should have stayed here.
So, obviously, we touched on, you know, you're a big guy, MMA and what have you. So you're a fighter. But that, and you've said this a few times on your social media, that doesn't always make you hard. There's always something that's underlining. And obviously what this podcast is all about is challenges that people have overcome. And obviously you've overcome a hell of a lot with the fighting. But also you've overcome some personal struggles that you've had. And one of the things you touched on with me was the dyslexia. Do you want to just elaborate your experiences, any stories you had suffering with that growing up?
Well, my biggest challenge ever in life, it's always been my biggest challenge. It's still my biggest challenge today. It's a challenge that never goes away when you've got to learn a difficulty, mate. It's just, and I'm not using it as any excuses. It's in many ways it's made me a warrior, but in a lot of ways it's made me a coward as well. It still makes me a coward today. It's the only thing that scares me. Going through a hotel lobby and them saying, "Excuse me, fill this form in," or an airport, or you know, going to the doctors, "Can you fill this form in?" And it's like during COVID, like I spoke to you on the call when we were talking about doing this, you know, they come and see you during COVID and go, "Pass your locator form," and I'd be like, "I can't read and write properly," and I'd have a panic attack in my head, and I'd always look to who was with me, my son just goes, like my wife does, you know, and that's where I'm a coward, because I should face it really. But growing up with it, I always knew I was something different. I was always hyperactive. My ma used to say, "Lads, if I take you to my mates, I'll only get fucking invited there once." You know what I mean? You can get that now, don't you? But because I'm mellow now as I've got older. But imagine this as a kid, and a big kid, you know, big massive kid who's breaking everything in the house. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the way it is, you know. And I always knew there was something different. And my dad knew I was very bright. He knew it. My dad could see it in me. My dad knew. My dad had an IQ of 152. Mine's 151, so he's beat me by 1. I could be immense if I wanted to, right? And that's not because I think I'm super bright. I just know I'm a really deep thinker. Me thought processes for fights is just so good. You know, I've won fights that people have never, not for me as a coach I'm talking about. We've won fights that people have thought we've never got no chance to win. You know what I mean? And it's just, we won a European title down and it was because we won a European title A young Welsh kid who was on a couple of losses and he won, and then we got this title shot because someone was ill. So he rung us with like a week's notice. Can you make this fight? It was a Cage Warriors European title, and we went down there and I give this kid this game plan before because I'd watched the kid before, and I just said just wrestle for him, right? I said don't bother with the strike and just he's got no wrestling defence, just take him down. And we were fighting Rich Shaw, and Rich Shaw's a good mate of mine. He probably watched this podcast. He's very, very famous in MMA. There's some fights in the UFC. Jack Tank Shaw, fucking unbelievable fighter. But going back, we won this fight because understanding my dyslexia as a kid and how I could get around it.
Yeah.
And that made me solve problems in fighting. It sounds weird, but the problem with dyslexia is, especially when you're an intelligent person, or the key sign with kids who have got dyslexia, and I must point this out, because as a coach of children, I hear so many people say, he's going for tests for ADHD, he's going for tests for dyslexia. I've got both. You know it when you see it, right? Like, everyone can have a touch of ADHD in them. If anyone's took a recreational drug that speeds them up, cocaine, speed, the way you feel on that is the way you feel a bit like all the time when you've got ADHD. That's the way to explain it to people.
Layman's terms.
So you're always hyper. People think you're nervous or you're worried, but you're not at all. Inside you're calm. You're just up the pole. You know what I mean? You want to get things out faster than they can come out. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I was always like that as well. And like I was always, anyone asked the question. Unless it was like, spell this. Right. But if anyone asked the question, I made myself laugh there, sorry. But if anyone asked the question, general knowledge, my dad was a seafarer. My dad was away at sea for 14 years. So, he'd been everywhere and could tell me about everywhere. And I had so much knowledge as a child. And my dad knew I was clever. And I was always putting the play with the plasticine sets, you know what I mean? Forgot about sets, because, and I'd be sat there and I'd be sitting with and one of them's a good mate of mine, but he knows he's Trigger, right? So I'd be sat there thinking, these are all just kids who are not quick, they're not slagging them, they're just not fast kids. And I'm having a laugh and a joke with the teacher. And the teacher, Mrs. Tidgeon, went and said, this kid should not be in these sets. His reading and writing is in this set. But this kid's not right. Else. This kid's not right. This kid shouldn't be here. And I'll always, God rest her soul, I'll always remember that woman. Always. My first year in senior school, this is how late it was in life. I'd been labelled as just a thick kid all the way through junior school. I had a headmistress that come in for my last year at junior school, and she seen it. Sometimes these educators, you get 1 in a million sometimes, probably 1 in 10 in teaching, but 1 in 10 of them change people's lives. Yeah. The diamonds. And who'd get upset, to be honest with you. She seen it, and she told me high school, and they sent me to Mrs. Tidgeon got me to go to psychologists, and they diagnosed me with dyslexia, and my life changed. I got a lot of help then. Do you know what I mean? But it was a massive relief, honestly, massive, because I always knew I wasn't thick, Yeah. And the key thing with kids with dyslexia is we are very bright. Yeah. Winston Churchill had dyslexia. You know what I mean?
Speaking to a few, I appreciate you sharing that, Sean.
Yeah, it's just something that I'm crying because I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. Well, no, so you should be. And when I've spoke to a few other people who are dyslexic, I don't know the exact percentages. It was too late, though. It was too late. I was diagnosed too late. It was the damage was done. Kids need to be diagnosed at 3 and 4. Yeah. You know what I mean? But so would you? Because obviously, because
I'm still semi-illiterate now. I could read that easily. But there's no way I could read a book. I have to listen to audio books. I lose I can't see anything after about 20 minutes of reading. It's gone. I can't just look at something and read it. I've got to look at it for 5 minutes, practice, then read it. You know, I'm not. When I say I'm illiterate, I can read and write. I can read road signs, and I know where I'm going. I've got enough to get by. I can just about spell a bloody. And everyone skits me social media posts.
Do you know what's funny though with the texting? When phones first came out, that's how you would have texted anyway. You know, with go through all the numbers and that, just because we've now got access. But no, I mean, when I've spoken to a few people with dyslexia, you often find that, certainly from my experience, and yourself being one of them now as well, is they excel in another field massively to compensate for maybe what they're not picking
and that's where that I didn't like using the word cowardice before, because what I mean when as coward, I mean I possess myself as that. Not I'm not saying other people who avoid it are, but I know from the fighting what you avoid and what you don't avoid. You know, and I avoid this because I'm a fighter and I should fight it and go at it. So I feel myself personally that it pervades me. That's the word I was looking for. It pervades me as in my own head as a bit of a coward. Do you know what I mean? That's what I meant. So I don't want anyone who's watching who's got dyslexia to think that I'm calling you that because I'm not. Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying, you know, it's my personal opinion of myself. So
it's a lived experience. Yeah. Now, when we spoke on, and obviously I'm very open about my sort of mental health struggles and suicide attempts, when we spoke on the phone as well, you touched on sort of your having bad mental health. Do you think deep down, obviously you got emotion that made you there as well, do you think that was potentially one of the catalysts that drove you into having bad mental, amongst other things, but do you think that was sort of like one of the main things that made you get into that dark place?
Yeah, my mental health, right throughout, if I'm really honest, even through my fighting career, I would have been a much better athlete, a much better fighter if I didn't drink alcohol. Yeah. The ADHD, I always, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, as I said, 11 years old, my first year of high school, it sort of changed my life because the teachers would be like, well, we can't put Sean in the remedial sets anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I think that has always scarred me, you know, that being right throughout junior school, right throughout first year of senior school, really being put in the sets that, and again, you know, these are people's...
It's like a type of stereotype.
Yeah, these are people's lives. I'm not, again, this is my opinion. I'm not having a go at people I was in the class with. I'm not saying I'm better than them because I'm not better than anyone. And there's one thing fighting will teach you. Let go of your fucking ego, man. You know what I mean? You know, so I don't mean I'm better than them, but I feel like that I was held back personally by being in the classes with them instead of being helped. I think I'd be a much better reader and writer and a much more confident person in a lot of ways now if I had got help younger. That's why I got upset before, because it was too late.
But it's right.
It was too late, and I feel for kids, because some kids are still getting diagnosed at 11 and 12, and it's wrong. But the ADHD led me to alcohol. That's what it was. I used to self-medicate. The percentage, I told you before, 92% of people with ADHD have some sort of addiction problem. Anyone you watch on social media, on TikTok, skipping, you know, fucking lifting weights every day, look at how much I'm bench pressing. Most of them, they're addicted to that. That it doesn't have to be alcohol. But mine was, I was sort of always doing sport all my life, so I never, like, the addiction wasn't an addiction to me, it was just consistency of getting better. So sometimes I didn't want to change, like Mike Tyson says, you know, do what you hate, but do it like you love it, man. You know what I mean? And that's what I used to do, because sometimes I didn't want to train. So when I got home, it was always like, even like in my late 20s, I mean, early 20s, it was only like weekends going out, teens, just going to pubs, drinking socially, you know, young 20s, same, going to pub. And my kids are that age now, and they don't do that. That culture sort of died. Thank God.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, because I think I was saying to you on the phone the other day, you go into a pub now, and I'm a bit younger than you, but when I go into a pub, people are off the face, jaws going, they go to the bogs, everything. Now, the younger generation, they just sat there on a pint. You can tell that the
younger generation, they're like, our recreational drug of choice was a drug that made you want to thump people in the face, and think your ego was bigger than anyone's in that pub. That's the worst drug you can take, especially if you've got, an egotistical personality anyway. You know what I mean? And I did a little bit. You know what I mean? I've got to be honest. You know what I mean? I was always in a hurry to be a great man rather than being in a hurry to be a good man. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So
good way of phrasing it, mate.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as a great man. It's just be good. Just be someone can actually look up to and pay for your bills and look after your kids and be a fucking proper person. Just be a fucking regular member of society. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, you can't be on your own or you have to have a partner. You know what I mean? You can do things on your own if you're living on your own. It doesn't matter, But going back to the drinking, I was doing that on my own. Right? It turned out where, I'm going to be honest, and my wife might get upset watching this, and I'm going to get upset a little bit. I knew it upset me because I don't like talking about myself in any derogatory term. It'll always be, I've done this, I've done that, you know what I mean? I was saying, because I'm selling myself, I'm selling the business. But, I've got a lot of flaws, you know what I mean? And alcohol was me massive. That was always a big thing. My dad used to say to me, just have 2 pints, but my dad could do that. Yeah. But my dad had an alcohol issue from his late 30s to his mid 40s, and he's packed in when he was 46. He never drunk till he was 56. He had 10 years completely, and then when he went back to drinking, it was just going for a couple of pints of Guinness on a Sunday. That was it. And he could do that. Maybe in the future, because I was never an alcoholic, but it was always maybe alcohol dependent. Might be a better word. Yeah. I was always like, if we won a big fight, where's the nearest bar? I'd stay sober. Not always as well when I was away with the fighters, and I apologise to a lot of my fighters because we'd go away and I'd train them in the day. I'd always make sure we got the training done, that which is given. But then they go to bed and I'll go and fucking get pissed at the hotel bar, Yeah. And I've done that a lot all around the world, and I feel ashamed of myself. But I used to get back. I get really bad separation anxiety from my wife. We've been together since we were kids. And I get separation anxiety, and that's the ADHD, and and the way to cure it was bevy. And when I'm away from my home, I get the separation anxiety, and then I'd be like, let's get the training done, I've got to stay professional, and then as soon as I've got the training done, I'm going to be a pisshead, and sitting in hotel bars, chatting to people from all over the world, chatting shit, you know what I mean? But, and then I come home, and then my bird would go, well, I'll tell you what, Sunday we'll go and have something to eat, and I'd go, yes, Sam, what time are we booking a meal? And she'd go 2 o'clock for Sunday roast, and I'd be thinking, I can start bevying, and that was something that led to, crept into Monday mornings. I feel ashamed doing this. I've got a couple of good mates that come and see me. A very good friend, Tony Quigley, ex-British boxing champion. He's quite a famous guy in Liverpool. And I put a status on my social media, lost, because I was. And he rung me, and he said, what's up? And I was pissed. It was just fucking Monday morning. I was still drinking. My bird had gone to work, the kids were at school. My oldest lad wasn't, he was in the front room, but he was used to it. And he come round and he said to me, come on, we'll go over, we'll have a pint. He said, because you're already pissed, I'm not going to sober you up. So we sat down and he said, where are you going with this? And Tony's had a lot of mental health issues. He'd be a great podcast guest for you. And Tony's suffered a lot more with me. He was Tony is diagnosed bipolar, and he really helped me that day. And then the other friend come round, Jay, later, and he took me for a drive. And I said to him that day, 2019, I said to him that day, I'm going to pack in drinking. And he said, you need help, right? He said to me, now listen, this is not me being a big head. I'm going to be honest. Most 99% of people go and get help. Right. But I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was just sick and tired of it. I got up 2 mornings before that. I got in my car, I was half pissed. I was down wanting to know I was going to Runcorn Bridge and I was going to do myself in. And Caroline rung me because it was ridiculous. It was summer morning, it was like 4:10, but it was light, it was going light. She said, where are you? And I said, I hate myself. I'm ruining your life, I'm ruining the kids' lives, I'm just fucking hate myself. You don't deserve me. And she said, pull over now. She said, turn the car around and come back. She said, I love you. And she said, don't be fucking stupid. And I carried on drinking for a couple of days after that. But that's all I was thinking about. And then Tony come and see me that day, and then my mate took me out of the car, and I said to my mate, I just looked up, and we were driving down the road, and he was like, the sun coming through the sky. And I just looked up, and I said to him, I'm going to stop drinking. He said, you need help? I said, no, I won't. I'll do it myself. And I went through a fucking week of being sick, puking up, feeling I couldn't take water down. That's how much I was drinking. That ruined my body. I was alcohol dependent. And I just went through a week of... I always looked well. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because I went to gym every day. I'd drink every night. And I always looked well. But I was mentally deteriorating massively. And it comes to like... That morning I was really... It scares me thinking about it because I meant it, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I meant it. And it scares me that. And I just said, I'm never drinking again. And that was 2019, and then the fucking pandemic come. And then the fucking pandemic come. And we had the best summer ever. And no one was at work, and I fucking back to Ireland. But you know what, mate? Yeah. I haven't had a drink since. It's 4 years. I haven't had a drink
I know we've not got an audience, but that deserves a round of applause in a sense. Not just for sharing the story, but the fact that you've come back 4 years. I mean, obviously, with my kind of suicide attempt, mine probably was drink. Well, it was, there's no probably about it, it was drink, but it was also drug dependence as well.
Yeah.
Now, I tend to I still have the occasional blowout, but in comparison to what I was doing. Yeah. But I've often said, there's always something in the back of my mind that tells me, by 40, I want to knock it on the head completely. Yeah. Whether I will or won't is a totally different thing. Yeah. But it's hearing stories like that, mates, that makes you kind of think. And I'm not saying don't drink alcohol or anything. I do it myself, and it's. But I think it's when you're in the headspace that I was in, you're in. Alcohol is not right for you.
Well, by the way, I drank alcohol really safely till I was in. Honestly, till I was in my mid-30s. I drank alcohol really, and this is what I want to say to people. Do you know how easy it gets hold of you?
Yeah.
You don't realise. You don't feel it happening. You just don't feel it happening. You go from a drink on a Friday and a Saturday night to maybe a Sunday afternoon creeps in. And then Wednesday night, I might just have a couple of pints. And then you think, I'm hungover Monday morning, I can't wait to get home to work and drink my hangover away. And then all of a sudden you're drinking fucking 6-7 nights a week.
Yeah.
And you're not realising you're doing it. Yeah. You know, when it gets hold of you, man, it gets hold of you.
I always say, you're sober, say you've not had a drink all week, you go to the pub on a Friday, everyone goes out with the best intentions. Yeah. And if you're like me, it probably only takes 2 or 3. But like you said, when alcohol gets hold of you, you're not bothered about how much you spend, you don't care what you... I always say, the difference, so obviously, alcohol's a gateway for someone ordering a bag of cocaine.
Yeah.
I don't, if you're level-headed, unless you're addicted to...
Never been a dry sniffer.
Exactly. you never... The difference between ordering a bag before a pint towards after a pint, there's no comparison. And it's because alcohol
My dad used to say, I've never made a great decision, pissed.
Exactly. You might think you do at the time.
But you make the decision. You're forthright when you're drunk.
Oh, yeah.
But then you wake up thinking, I really regret that forthright decision.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, let's put a bit of a positive on this. You touched on that you've travelled all around the world with drinking. Yeah. So do you want to just list off
Sounds like that should be a show. We should do that as a show.
There you go.
I'll just turn back to alcoholism just for the show.
No, sorry, my fault. I worded that. You've been travelling all around the world because of fighting, but that's obviously what led you to other stuff. I'm a firm believer that travel broadens the mind. I hate the aspect of going through airports and that, but actually
actually go and see in the world. I fucking love it. It's one of my favourite pastimes. And I'm fortunate enough, I've been to some fantastic places, like yourself.
I've been to places people would never ever go to because fights are there.
So in terms of, roughly, you might know this number, but if you don't, give us a rough idea. How many different countries, places have you been to?
Guessing. When you asked me that the other day, I was guessing. I said to Caroline about 30, probably.
Yeah. That's a good
about 30, yeah.
So 30 different.
And I've been to very strange places that other people would never go to, off the beaten track. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Which is like because of my wife. If I was watching a show and you were in Bogota, Colombia, like talking to some dealers, I'd be like to me bed, wouldn't it be boss being there seeing that, like, and me bed be like, no, I want to be on a holiday on a beach somewhere, you know. So I've had them experiences, not with me missus. So I've been very lucky. To be in places that me missus would never go to. You know what I mean? So that's been part of it.
Fortunate, yeah. So I suppose on the back of that, what's probably the strangest place you've been that maybe viewers, listeners have probably never even contemplated going?
Strangest. Strangest. Okay, I've been to a few really strange places. China's a very, very strange place. Especially when you like go to somewhere that's not like one of the major cities. I mean, you got to remember, like, some of the cities in China that are not major are 7 million. Yeah. So like Birmingham would be like a small city in China, right? Just some of the things you see is strangest. I'd say I'll go with two different places. So I'll go strangest China, strangest because the culture's completely different. It's not our culture. Their customs are different. You do things that we would consider very polite, they would consider rude. They eat things that we would never eat. You walk down the street, there's pigs cut in the middle, dead, sprayed in half. All women with carrier bags and bifters in, throwing fucking...
Are you just describing St Helens here?
Hey, throwing the fucking middle of the pig though, whatever's in it, the heart, the lungs, all the... Like in a blue carrier bag, I always remember the colour of the carrier bag. Blue carrier bag with a bifter in, scrunching it up, giving it to some fella giving some sort of Chinese money for it. I'm thinking, how would you pay money for that? Why? Who in the whole history of humanity, why the fuck would you pay money for that? I would pay money for you not to hand me that.
Oh, that's right though, isn't it? Yeah.
But me and the lad were out there about like, and he's cut away for the fight, and he's got a fucking live in fucking KFC and peel the fucking breadcrumbs off the KFC and fucking eating fucking... I mean, him are like, do you reckon this is real chicken? I went to open it in the middle of that pig. Hey, but fucking...
Well, no, I can see that actually strangest place. So what's the second one that ties with that?
Probably Chechnya, Grozny. Yeah. Right. So just at the time we went, you know, one of my fighters years ago, originally from Birmingham, but he moved up here, and we got a fight on Cage Warriors, and at the time Cage Warriors had done one show before there in Grozny in Chechnya, and it was just coming. It was like 2011, I think, or 2012, and it was just at the end of the hostilities where because they'd had like an internal war. There's been a lot of wars in Russia. People know about this war now because
it's more mainstream.
Because one reason being is like Poland is part of the West, and obviously Ukraine would want to be part of the West, but the countries that don't want to be part of the West, there is still internal struggle there. So obviously people don't understand that Chechnya is a part of Russia that is Islamic, very Islamic, like extreme Islamic. Like you catch you drinking alcohol there, they'll cut your hand off. It's bad, right? So this is at the time where alcohol. To be honest with you, the alcohol hadn't got hold of me at this time, so it wasn't massively important to me. I wasn't going to go out there and have the DTs like I did when I finished drinking. You know what I mean? So we went out there and we landed at the airport. And when you're coming down the stairs at the airport, there's two mounted machine guns on the back of jeeps with troops on. And when you get on so you don't go through passport control. You get on this coach. A fella gets on the coach. And he goes through and checks all your passports. Right? And he goes, sound. Then the one Jeep with machine gun on the one front one Jeep with machine gun, this one. So, you know, we all had to fly. So all the fighters from everywhere, a lot of fighters from Cage Warriors at that time were Swedish and Danish, so they'd flew in from Scandinavia. So we all had to fly we flew from Liverpool and we all met at Charles de Gaulle. And we all flew from Charles de Gaulle to Grozny. It was about 4.5 hours. Like it's like where Russia meets the top of Turkey. Armenia, you know, so it's all the people are very dark there. Big beards, you know, it's an Islamic place. But maybe we were treated like they took us to the hotel and all the fighters, because we all ended up on this little like shuttle plane that took us to Grozny. And all the fighters were on one plane, so they flew us all to Charles de Gaulle as a fight team. Everyone who was fighting each other's on the plane. It's great. So it's weird that when everyone's going, I'm fighting him, he's fucking sat behind me, you know. So fucking you get there and it felt like you know when you watch a film like about Russia in the 80s, like, you watch Chernobyl. Yeah, and lots of the buildings were blew up and destroyed. It's still the infrastructure. Like if you go there now, if you go to Grozny now, it's a beautiful city. Yeah. You know, a decade later. But then it was the rubbles of war, and we had a great event. I mean, we won with a triangle in the second round. We had a great event. We beat a Chechnyan lad, and I always was worrying about that. And I know they were very sportsmanlike, very accepted it very well, and they were good people. Yeah. They were very good people.
I think certainly with my sort of stance on sport, I think we're just embedded because we're a nation of hooligans, aren't we? Where we take losses to heart. But when I've been like, you know, particularly like more Asia kind of side of the world, and Africa especially, they are more respectable of the decision, and they do appreciate sport for what it is.
I honestly, there's a few crowds that react bad. One thing I don't like about anything in combat sports or in sport in general, but in combat sports, you should really appreciate what both fighters are in there doing. I do not like people booing the other fighter or disrespecting the fighter. When you go to Russia and you go to Japan and you go to anywhere in the Far East, right? They never ever disrespect. Even if they're a hometown fighter, it is like the best thing since bees knees. And you come in and you beat them, they will clap you in them countries, right? That doesn't happen here, and people need to learn about that. Like that doesn't happen here, and that's one thing that lets us down. But it's win or fuck off here. You know what I mean?
It is. I mean, they're very quick to sort of turn out the what I mean.
They boo when people's faces are cut to bits, and they boo them, and I'm like, are you fucking messing?
Well, that's. I mean, I've only dipped my toe in the sport of like, you know, charity boxing matches and what have you, and just off that, I know the blood, sweat, tears that goes into it, just off doing a little thing like that. So doing it as a pro, and for me, you're disrespecting what they've trained for this entire fight, and you know yourself, you've had plenty of them. That moment going into the ring, that's the fight. That's more nervous than getting hit in the face. How the crowd and that are going to react. So no, you've hit the nail here. I think we do need to work on being a more appreciative of sport. Right, so this part of the podcast is sort of like quick fire. So you're the first person I'm doing this with, so highly honoured. Or you're highly honoured, I should say.
Good, thanks.
So quick fire, when I say quick fire, the quick fire questions in a sense I've got them here. You don't have to give one word answers or anything like that. So for you personally, who is your pound for pound GOAT, greatest of all time fighter?
John Jones.
I
always say what comes to mind straight away.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And then next question, who's your biggest sporting hero and why?
100% Neville Southall.
And why is that?
Because I grew up with the greatest Everton team that's ever existed, right? We won the league twice when I was a kid. No one can ever say that. My kids are Evertonians like I am, born and bred, but they've never seen us win anything. I've seen us win a lot. You know what I mean? Bad European Cup, but we won't go on about why we never won that. Like, but Neville Southall, because he was a kid from a council estate on the top of a mountain in Wales, right? And no one knew him. He played in youth teams in goal when he was 5'5" and got player of the season. He went from obscurity to one of the biggest clubs in Europe at that time. And was the best goalkeeper I have ever seen in my life. And I was a goalkeeper as a kid. Listen, one thing, a big kid. Where did he put the big kid when you play footy? In goal.
Well, you know what, that was me, because I was not that I was a fat lad, far from it, but I was just shite. So it was either a case of I got picked last and I got put in next.
To be honest with you, my mates will tell you I'm pretty poor outfield. I'm too big to turn like a bus, but in goal I was a decent keeper. I think I always had natural agility, and that's what led to the fighting, I think.
Yeah, no. But also as well, I think you touched on there with your sporting hero, because the humble beginnings like yourself. Just
because he was a working class kid, and when he got interviewed, he was so dry.
Yeah.
You know, he was on an interview on the telly when we won the league, and they go, Neville, can you hear us? Can you hear us? And you can hear them saying it to him. He goes, no. It's just so funny, you know.
Yeah. It's good. It's going that humour now, isn't it? At the level of sarcasm.
Yeah, it is. I love sarcasm.
It's great.
It's the greatest form of wit. They say it's the lowest. I think it's the greatest.
Oh no, I totally agree.
Scousers grow up on it, lad. It's one-liners in Liverpool all the time, isn't it?
I think that's the only place that still has that level of sarcasm now.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is more on a personal level for you. Who's the toughest person you fought, and why?
I narrowed this down to 3. When I was kickboxing, I fought Pele Reid. And it wasn't the toughest, it was the quickest fight I ever had. He was just the best person I've ever fought. He was a Sheffield kid, 6'4". He looked like Shadow off the Gladiators. Do you know what I mean? He was fucking awesome. I weighed 92 kilos, I think he weighed 94. He hit me with a spinning back kick to the stomach, and I can still feel it now.
Yeah, not bad.
Hardest, Wayne Buck. I fought Wayne Buck in Doncaster Dome in 2004. I got stopped in the second round. He smashed me to bits, honestly. And he was an ex-Longsdale cruiserweight British champion boxer. And I hadn't trained really striking for that fight. I thought I was going to take him down and do him in. And I remember sitting in the house for 3 weeks after that fight. My ego, badly hurt. I got smashed a bit. I was pissing blood after it. My nose was broke. My eye socket was broke. It took me 4 years to watch the fight back, right? And it was on one of the old Sky channels that I used to get for free, the Combat channel. And it come on, and I had this fucking Mohican going from that to there, dyed red, right? So I used to think I was someone, I think. And I went out, and do you know what? When I watched the fight back, I done better than I remember.
Yeah.
Like, when I remember it, I just got thumped everywhere, right? Because that's what I thought had happened. And I was actually in a fight. I just got caught in a big shot, but I was actually in the fight, and but I didn't want to see it. But that's the toughest fella. That's the hardest punch I've ever felt in my life. Yeah.
Well, the fact it took you 4 years to watch it back, short testament to that. Okay, so this one is, well, there's 2 here, but one of them is sort of physical first before we go into mental. Yeah. What's the hardest personal physical challenge you've ever done, and why?
Couldn't wait for a fight.
Yeah.
100%. I done light heavyweight twice. I think anyone who tells you, like anyone who's been, you know, done a commando course, or they'll tell you it's that, or anyone who's done any of that and then had to cut weight for a fight, will tell you it's cutting weight for a fight.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you've done in life. You've done fucking 10 marathons in fucking 4 weeks or whatever. Cut fucking 2 stone in 10 days. Do that. Right? That is the hardest physical challenge I've ever had to do in my life. Yeah. And I didn't used to cut major weight. Yeah. I've got kids in here who are sitting at 9% body fat, and they're cutting like a third of the body weight for a fight. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like they're sitting in saunas for hours when they've got no water in them, dehydrated. And I never done any of that. All I did was cut 8 kilos. I was just cutting 8 kilos over 7 weeks. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's something that I think I'd happily just fight at heavyweight. I love food too much. That would be just the... I mean, obviously I do fasting and what have you as well, but you know yourself, with fasting, you then get to eat, you know, quite a large amount to let you go for the next fast. But yeah, I tip my hat off to anyone who cuts weight. I really do, because I've watched videos, documentaries on it, and it just looks insane to do. Okay, so I suppose we may have touched on this earlier on, but I'll ask it again. What was the hardest personal mental challenge you've ever done, and why?
Me mum dying. That's when the alcohol started.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise. It's only when you do your time. It's funny when you stop drinking, how much clarity comes back in your life.
Yeah.
Whoa! That happened. Oh my God! Yeah. It was my mum dying that led. My mum died when I was 36, and I said to you I started drinking heavy when I was in my late 30s before on this, you know, and that was what it was. And then it just got older, me in my 40s, and it was, you know, it took me till I was 44 to realise, and then, you know, stop drinking when I'm 44.
I think it's that, obviously, I think that'll be my answer if you ask me in 20 years' time, hopefully longer, because I've got a fantastic relationship with my mum, and I dread the day that news happens.
All men. Right, listen, my dad's just passed away, and this is not derogatising my relationship with my dad, because my dad and me were peas in a pod. I aspire to be him. And if I can be him, I'll be okay. I'll be a good person. You know, he was with one woman all his life. You know, I've been, more or less. Not that that's a great thing, it's just a good achievement, personally. It's just a personal achievement.
In this day and age, mate, it's a massive achievement.
But when my mum died, mate, hardest time of my life, I have felt physical pain in my chest. For months, agony. Taking the dog for a walk, crying and getting a bottle of vodka getting a bottle of vodka, quarter bottle of vodka, and pouring out a bottle of Coke, walking down the field, lost with the dog. You know, my mum dying my mum was like the Irish matriarch. She was everything, you know. I could ring her up and say, Mum, listen, I remember like when the kids were little, she'd ring us up and go, you two going out this weekend? Bring them kids down here. She brought my boys up. You know, my boys were 11 and 12 when she died, so they loved the nan, they knew the nan, at least they had a good relationship with the nan, they'll always remember the nan. You know, and that was the hardest thing. That's the hardest mental trauma, and that's what the alcoholism comes from, I think.
Well, no, I completely empathise with you there massively, and sympathise with you as well.
It helped losing my dad, losing my mum. I was so devastated about losing my mum that when my dad passed away, I wasn't. And I think my dad's gone to my ma, you know, so my alpha's with my ma now, so, you know, they can have a good natter. They never used to speak anyway, they just sit in different rooms and pretend they love each other.
Well, you never know, they might be doing that up there as well.
To be honest with you, it was my ma, not my alpha, and my ma was more of a man than my dad. She deadbutt you, my ma. Don't suffer fools, the Irish lad.
No, 100%. Okay, so these next ones are more sort of like, you're a coach, you know, you're someone who, I know this is the first day we properly met.
When I've seen you on social media, I said, oh, he was a thing, he was wedding, he was a thing. Because I've seen you in a few dudes, We just never got a chance to chat.
I think that's what it is, because all
the St Helens limo went in between us, getting on our nerves.
That's it. So it's like, I'm out of it. We'll chat next time.
See you later, let's get ready.
But
11 o'clock we're going. I'm a bore now, you know, lad, I'm a bad bore, bad.
So with regards to sort of like, you know, the coaching, and then obviously the videos you post, I love listening to them. I put up status on the other day, like and I imagine this applies to yourself, maybe I'm a bit weird in this day and age, but I fucking love seeing people do well for themselves. If they've worked hard and they've earned it, that should be applauded. Not ridiculed, not, you know, I know there's a lot of jealousy, negativity, it happens, it's never going away. But for me, it's just if people have worked hard, let them have that moment.
Do you know what? It took me stopping drinking. I remember I listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of clever people or people who I admire. And Jordan Peterson said something, and he said people use jealousy and envy in the same context, and they're totally different contexts. He said, jealousy is a wasted tool that doesn't help fucking anyone, you know? He said, but envy can drive you to be successful if you use it in the right way. You know? So it's okay to be envious of people. As long as you don't let that envy turn to jealousy. If I see someone doing well, I'm like, fair play, man. You know what I mean? And you know what? Because everyone looks after number one first, you know, even if you're the leftist wingest person on the planet, you know what I mean? My granddad used to say there's no pockets in shrouds, right? Right, which means, like, you know, you can say you're part of the, you know, Politburo and be for the people, all the people. But when you're in the house, you're on your own. So you look after who's in the mirror, you know. And I think that's my philosophy in life. Do you know? So I would say, from that perspective, I would say, just me personally, doing them videos helps me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's as much about looking after number one. I think the I don't know who said it, but they always say, I think it was Muhammad Ali actually. Muhammad Ali said, the greatest love of all, because the song was wrote about the quote. The greatest love of all. It's wrote about a Muhammad Ali quote, that song. Right. And it's the greatest love of all is learning to love yourself. And when you do learn to love yourself, I had to stop drinking to learn that. And then I started feeling happy for people doing really well. And seeing, like, I had a couple of fighters leave me and open their own MMA business. And I was very negative and I was very like, yeah, you know, I was drinking at the time as well. I was like, you're fucking robbing me clients. But they were their clients anyway. They trained them anyway when they were here. And I didn't see that at the time. And it was like one of the lads that did it. And now I look at him and he's doing really well in his fighting and his business. And I think to myself, you're only a young lad with a family like me who just wants to have a go at what you're doing. Why was I negative towards that? Do you know what I mean?
That'll be
and he won the Cage Warriors World title last night.
Did he?
Friday night, Mick Stanton. And lad, I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you.
Like you touched on earlier on, you know, that will have been because of the drinking. Now you've got clarity in your head. You can see things in a different sense.
I think, to be honest with you, I used to think, like I done a status the other day about people come on social media and you put cryptic fucking statements up that fucking does my head in. That's where you'll see the fucking fighting in me, lad. Right? Where they go, can't fucking believe it. Question mark. You know what I mean?
No substance.
You know what I mean? And it's like, what they're saying is, I'm a victim. Right? You're a victim when you put statements up like that because you want people to go, what's up, babe? You know what I mean? That's, you know what I mean? You're a victim. Stop doing it. No, if you want to be positive, if you want to move on in your life, don't do that shit. You know
I generally, with social media is, I make a rule. If I've had a shit day at work or I'm in a stinker of a mood, I don't go on it. Because anything I see that would normally not trigger me, certainly normal, like, you know, if I'm on social media now, I'm in a good mood, I'd look at it and probably just go, what a tosser, move on. Whereas if I'm in a bad mood, it'll just grind me gears, and there's no real reason why.
It's like, and I've been guilty of it in the past. You know, people putting pictures up at the breakfast.
Well,
it's made my day. That's fucking changed my life. Your breakfast.
So I used to be one of those people. I don't do it as much now.
Do you know what? I said I was guilty of it, didn't I? Especially when I've been hungover and the breakfast looking great, you know, fucking.
Well, mine used to be like poached eggs. Because I was like, I'm proud of that poached egg on a shirt. So,
if you make it yourself,
no one else.
No, to be honest with you, I've made meals and said I've made that myself. But it's like when someone goes. It's like when someone's like, you know, having an avocado and an egg, you know, and they're like sticking to me diet, and like everyone's like, do you know what? That's just changed my day. No one that sees he's sticking to a diet.
100%. So going back onto, obviously now you've got clarity. You know, you're 4 years sober. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? And of course, why?
This is a big one for me, right? Because I look at a couple of things that happened when I was about 23, and that's when you turn from like 23 to 28 when you sort of understand what being a man is. And I used to always like blow hard, tell people I was this, tell people I was that. If I had one bit of advice, because people who know me know I'm bubbly and I'm a generally decent, funny person. But if I talk about what I've achieved, it's normally about what I've achieved for other people. You know, it's normally about, you know, their MMA journey and how I've been on it, and I've been proud to be on it, because my coaching career has been far exceeded me fighting career, because I've been all over the world coaching. But what I would say to my younger self is, I needed to learn this anyway, so, you know, I wouldn't change anything, but if I could give him a bit of advice, it'd be like, shh. That's the bit of advice. That's what
it speaks volumes, doesn't it? It's something so simple, but it's apt, it's appropriate.
Okay, so next one, I've got 2 more questions, then we'll call it a day. But this one is, if you could give one piece of advice to anyone wanting to get into mixed martial art or any combat sports, what would you say? Because obviously on paper, I'm looking at this from sort of like someone who's oblivious to it now. On paper, you've got I don't want my son or daughter getting their head bashed, or non-binary, getting their head bashed in a ring. How would your perception be of that?
Just to go over the thought process before that question, like preceding that question, I have a lot of pre-university students coming to me now, one-on-ones. I've got about 6 of them, and one's a young lad who again, we won't talk about, I don't want to talk about anyone personally, but he's got an issue. Another young lad, his mum and dad, he's never been one for going out and having hang around on the streets, and he's going off to university. His mum and dad said he's not streetwise at all. That's the reason you should think about mixed martial arts, because these 2 boys have come to me. One's got an issue I'll tell you about off camera, but it's his issue, so it's not to do with me. The other one is a lovely, comes from his mother's a vicar, and he's a lovely kid, Simeon. So if he's on this, and I want to talk about him because he's doing so well. And he's a big, strong kid. He reminds me of me at 15 years old. He's big, powerful, strong, blonde hair, freckles, but he's a big, powerful kid, and he reminds me of me. He hits really hard, and he was a kid he's into Star Wars. He's a proper, middle class lad. His mother's a vicar, his dad's a lawyer. He's not really streetwise, and his mum has really done a really amazing thing sending it to me. And I keep sending videos to his mum because the kid can fight, man. If he's ever in trouble, if he goes to a town, say Leicester University, and Leicester's got its rough areas, all cities do, and you get the scallies that hang around feeding off the students. Liverpool, the students get bloody daily robbed every day. Manchester the same. Every old big city. But if Simeon can go, hang on a minute, you're not taking me credit card, you're not walking me to an old cash point and taking me money off me, I'm going to thump you in the face. And he can do that. And he can do it with skill. And if it goes to the ground, he knows how to choke them and arm lock them. And that's just coming here for 2 years to change the kid's life. And if I'm going to advertise my business, that's the advertisement I need, that's it. Right? The kid's going off to university, never hung around on the streets in his life. His mum and dad have got great jobs. So he's been somewhat mollycoddled, and that's what his mum said on the email. I was, even though I was brought up on a council estate, I just told you how soft I was. I was brought up in a really rough environment, but my mum used to hug me to sleep. You know what I mean? So I was mollycoddled. You don't have to be in a middle class environment to be mollycoddled. I know plenty of, like you said, you love your mum. I'm sure your mum's mollycoddled you, lad.
100%. I was an only child as well.
There you go, lads. You know what I mean? I'm talking to him about only child syndrome. It's funny that, isn't it? It's funny that, isn't it?
But no, we come from a little bit of a rough upbringing. But just adding on to what you said there, with as much as we all try to give off this positive vibe, positive energy, and the world's all positive, it's not. No. It's a cruel, nasty world, harsh world out there. And I think having that skill set where you can defend yourself, that's potentially going to help you out day to day.
It's like I tell you how confident it makes you, right? Me and Conor Hignett were out in South Africa, and we went down to the hotel lobby. Like, we were staying in a place called Santon, which is like the West End. It's lovely. And I said, "Where's the nearest nightclub?" Conor had just fought 5-round world title fight in South Africa. Got beat on a decision, close fight. We had our EFC paraphernalia, and we both had like suits. We were all suited and booted. We went to a nightclub in Johannesburg. 2,000 people. The only white people in the club were me and Conor. Security, bar staff, everyone black, right? Everyone was dancing around, was getting pictures. People were saying to us, "Are you nuts? Are you mad? You're in one of the roughest cities in the world." The doorman kept coming over going, "Everything okay, boss?" Be like, "Yes, sound." And he must have thought we were some sort of either lunatics, gangsters or celebrities. Right? And do you know why we done that? Because we were both professional martial artists. And do you know what we're scared of? Nothing. Yeah. Right? Stupidity. That is very stupid. You know what I mean? Better to be a live coward than a dead hero. But we were both a bit drunk, and it takes your inhibition away. And we were like, "Oh, the nightclub, and they were like, it's rough, it's that bad down there." And it was, you could see it from we could see it all bouncing off and kicking off. They weren't kicking off, they were just spinning cars. And it's like a local nightclub, you know what I mean? Mate, we got treated like royalty. They got a taxi home, we got straight back to the... Honestly, and I just think, if we had walked in there looking nervous, being nervous, you're playing that victim that I was talking about before. And that's what martial arts takes away from you. It gives you the ability to make your own decisions and stop worrying about what other people think, and you can look after yourself. That's all you need in life. A little bit of confidence, right? And happiness is everything.
Oh, 100%. No, I totally agree with that, what you just said there. And then my last question I've got for you would be, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's maybe has got an addiction, maybe has suffering with the mental health, what would be the first step you could advise them?
Get help. It's got to be. Get help, right? I made a comment before, it sounded flippant and it sounded egotistical. But I meant it, and I'm not taking it back, where I said I knew I could do it on my own, right? I've been fighting since I was 13. People haven't got that. I've got a bit of willpower because of the fighting. And I used to be a coward and not face my own willpower. I didn't want to give up. I never really wanted to give up. I liked the high of being drunk. But when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's the end of it. There's no fun in it anymore. So I knew I could give it up. My biggest advice is don't try and be me. Yeah. Get help, right? The first people you should talk to, right? Even if you haven't got anyone, right? Even if you haven't got any relatives, or you fell out with your family, or your best friend's not speaking to you, the first person you should talk to, right, is at the end of the phone, because we have so many helplines in this country, right? And you will get answered. And the NHS has been in a terrible, sorry state of affairs. But I rung up for counselling when I needed it, and I got it. Yeah. I did have to wait a little bit, but I got it. And I rung a crisis team up when I was at my lowest. This is a year before I gave up drinking, because I felt that flat and low. And I went and I had 3 sessions with a young girl, and I had more sessions booked, but I carried on drinking, and I chose to drink. And I got help, and I should have stuck with it, and I would have been 5 years clean instead of fucking 4. You know, get help, please. If you have got people to speak to in your family, your mum and dad love you, man. Your mum and dad love you. Your brothers and sisters love you. Your cousins love you. Your aunties and uncles love you. Speak to them and tell them the struggle, because you're the only person who deals with struggle. You deal with it yourself. You can't deal with it and attack it if you can't face it. You need someone to tell you what to do sometimes. You need someone to tell you to help you. You know, because sometimes listening to other people can save your life. Sometimes it can kill you as well. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I couldn't have worded that better myself. Just touched on just reaching out, a conversation shared, a problem shared. What's the phrase now?
Problem shared, a problem
solved.
That's
the one, yeah. So it's and even something like this where we're just sat together, you know, we've not met really prior to this, and it's just having a conversation. There's no reason you can't then do that with somebody else who maybe you've never met. Maybe it is someone on the other end of the line, or if you're fortunate enough like us, you've got a good network of people, then you know you can have the chat with them. Sean, you've been a fantastic guest. It's been an absolute roller coaster.
I do talk a lot, sorry guys.
No, listen, that's what we want. But it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I knew it was going to be a good one with you anyway, but you've opened my eyes. And one thing I will say to you, a bit of advice from me, is keep doing what you're doing. You will be inspiring more people.
Without the support of St Helens, the community I've had, I'm unbelievably proud to represent the people of St Helens. When we fight, I'm getting upset, when we fight on arena shows in front of 17,000 people in Bellator, I'm the same fighting out of St Helens, Merseyside, England. It fucking makes me proud. Honestly. No. And the St Helens staff have really, really supported us as well. And I want to thank them.
No, that's fantastic. Sean, you're an absolute legend, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks very much, big lad. Take care. I've been Daniel Hodges. This is Sean Martin. You've been listening to HodgeCast. See you later.